Welcome back, I'm Alison. In this video I'm happy to have a guest on my show with me, and we're going to be talking about crystals and really how they relate to astrology. Tatiana is a crystal worker and astrologer here in Vancouver, and I'm very happy to have her join me here today. Typically I only ever really talk about astrology here, but I do want to consider branching out into more New Age techniques, perhaps like crystals, tarot reading, tassomancy, or things like that. Colour work particularly interests me, and I will be probably dropping in a few of these videos in between the main astrology work as well. The idea being that if you are an astrologer, you don't typically just come to astrology. If you're into New Age at all, you will have perhaps even a working knowledge of some of the other New Age techniques, such as tarot reading or crystal work or something like that. I do believe that to have skills in other New Age techniques makes you a more rounded astrologer. Even though it's not strictly astrological learning that you're doing, it actually gives you a broader perspective on the main subject, which is astrology. Of the New Age practices, of which there are quite many, astrology is just one part of this, and there is absolutely no reason why you wouldn't cross over and learn some other New Age techniques as well. I first came to crystals about 10 years ago. Back then we were living in South Africa, which is of course a mineral dense place, and my interest in crystals began at that time. I'm interested in how the crystal structures are, and I will talk about that in another video about the actual structure of crystals that make them different from other metamorphic rocks or sedimentary rocks, and how the actual structure and the creation of crystals is such an interesting part of crystal work as well. This too will be covered later on. But the fact that crystals can be used in healing is generally as you would take the crystal and bring it into the space of your aura, which is about 10 centimeters from your body. In general, it actually, because of the piezoic effect of the actual crystal and that it carries an electric charge, although infinitesimally small, the crystals will bend whilst in your aura, and this has to do with how the energy healing works with crystals. And once more, I will definitely be looking more into that later on. But so let's go on. I want you to welcome Tatiana. I'm very happy to have her here, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the video. Thanks for joining us again. And today I have my good friend Tatiana, and she's here to talk a little bit about crystals. But first, I'm just going to ask you, Tatiana, if you could tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Alison. Very nice to see you here. Thank you for the collaboration. So briefly, I just say that I come from Russia and I live in Vancouver, BC at the moment. And my background is mainly psychological, although I have also visual arts. I was a photographer before, and I'm into dance. But what I do now mainly is developing a wellness practice, which is called Life and Glow. Life and Glow Wellness is the channel. Also, I practice both psychological contemporary methods and esoterical methods, such as alternative healing and astrology and numerology.
That's great. And I'll put a link to your website, Life and Glow, below down in the comments, so our viewers can go and check you out there and give you some love there too. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into crystals in the first place?
Yes, so actually I've got into crystals because I was born in the area which is known for minerals and rocks. Oh. Yeah, at that time I wasn't really into crystal healing, although I kind of suspected that they can be used for crystals, but no one around me was talking about that, and I didn't come across any book about that. And so basically I was just here and there exposed to seeing certain crystals and falling in love with rocks and minerals in general. The first crystal which I remember is malachite, and it's a famous mineral from Ural Mountains. It's also found in some other countries, but our area is one of the main sources of malachite. And how I found out about it is also from a Russian fairy tale. Technically it's called skaz. It's kind of like a folk tale.
Okay.
By a famous writer Pavel Bajov. It's called Malachite Casket or Malachite Jewel Box. I'm not sure how it's translated into English.
Maybe a chest, a treasure chest or something.
Maybe it's like a small thing. In Wikipedia it's called Malachite Casket. So, and there is an English translation. So, and then I started going to some gem shows and just seeing some minerals at people's homes. But at that time I didn't know how to use it for healing yet. So yeah.
So what do you think the benefits of having crystals in someone's life are?
Crystal healing is a really wonderful technique, like a method of healing, which I highly recommend for people, even if you are skeptical yet about crystals. Once you start opening up to them and kind of allow yourself to feel them more, you might discover some benefits of connecting to crystals. And then how it will be, it's really personal. So some people will connect on a spiritual level, it's like for opening their third eye or whatever, or maybe like connecting to their intuition and their needs, you know. For some people, it can be more of a physical aspect of healing, for example, against bruises or to get some more energy or to balance energy. And for other people, it can be emotional balance and boosting something in life, like finding love or maybe like finding more creativity, inspiration, if you're like a writer or something like that. So,
okay. So it can be used in many ways in somebody's life. You don't necessarily have to be an astrologer or into New Age. Crystals in general can be helpful for everyone. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, for sure. I mean, it depends. Some people want to use them for aesthetical
Yes.
purposes as well, right? But also, even if you do so, like notice how you react to crystals. Crystals, they can focus, they can keep and transmute energy. So in a way, it's kind of like a door or like a portal to something, like to a condition or maybe to an insight or something like that. And how you will get there really depends on how you connect to crystals. And sometimes it takes time, right? So, but they might be your helpers to get where you want in some way. So.
Well, this is great. Tatiana, could you show us a little bit of the jewelry that you make?
Yes, so I make a lot of necklaces and bracelets, like bracelets you can see here, for example, and then necklace can be short or long. Usually it's either 1 or 8 beads. So yesterday I created this necklace and it's a really nice combination of stones.
So what crystals are those?
These ones are rose quartz, snowflake obsidian.
Oh.
Also, I added here some pearls and white agate. And snowflake obsidian and rose quartz kind of like really good together to help you to forgive and to accept yourself, to accept certain situations in life. So it's really for the 4th chakra, and it's a must have necklace, not necessarily with the pearls and white agate, but I would say it's for everyone. It can be very beneficial. Also, it helps to take away some pain, for example, abdominal pain.
So
Also,
is this the type of jewelry that typically you make and that our viewers could maybe get from you?
yes, for sure. It's you can see some samples on my website, but it really varies. So I usually do on request by date of birth using astrology and numerology. And sometimes it's like a mala beads. So it's like 1 or 8 beads, but with a tassel as well. This is a little bit more elaborate work.
Yes.
For example, it's 6 different stones combined. You don't need to choose so many. Usually it's like 2, 3, or maximum 4. Yes, and in crystals together, they kind of enhance each other in some way. It's like music. There are chords, you know, and those notes, they sound together interestingly.
Yes, yes, that's a very good analogy. Yeah, that music by just going dunk, dunk, dunk on the piano is not the same as a fabulous melody. And that's what you're saying when you bring all the crystals together, right?
Yeah. So it's like in music, you just kind of find that the one which sounds good. And again, sometimes it depends on the person as well. Like to you, it might sound good, and to someone else, it will sound in a different way. Everyone discovers crystals for themselves in their own way. So just there are some certain combinations which prove to be working kind of in a similar way for people. So
yeah, that's super interesting. Good, got some good thoughts there. Thank you. Could you share with us then which was the first crystal that you remember buying?
Yeah, that's an interesting question as well. Like I actually do not remember what was the first crystal which I bought. I think that the first one which I consciously recall is that it was it was probably like kind of jasper like that, so maybe a little bit more green. So I assume it was Jasper Group, but I'm not entirely sure because it's not exactly unakite and not exactly jasper, but it probably was jasper. Like I've never seen here this type of jasper. So and it was made in leather, so it wasn't like a stone, it was a jewelry piece.
Okay.
And I guess the rest was probably more like I purchased beads, like when I started creating jewelry even in Russia. So that's my story.
Can our viewers purchase your jewelry at this stage?
In the future, I will have an online store, so people can select specific types of bracelets and necklaces and purchase them. For example, if they like how they look, and then I can make for them, for their size. You have to make sure that the size fits, you know, for bracelets and anklets. And also I do mostly at the moment obirect jewelry on request. So someone comes to me and they say what they're struggling with, or what they liked on my page, or what they want to have, and so I choose them by date of birth using both astrology and numerology.
So what's the name of your website if people want to follow you and see your work?
You can also go to lifeandglow.com, so you can see them there.
Okay. So because we know that, you know, of course, that we talk about astrology here on this channel, and I understand that you have selected a few crystal stones for us for each of the astrological signs. Is that correct?
It's correct. I just want to say a couple of words before we get to the crystals themselves. Is that it's a very popular question, like I am a Taurus or a Gemini, so what stone should I use? So, but to be honest, like probably many people who work with crystals, they look at that as more of astrology columns by sun sign. It's difficult to choose one crystal for the sign because we don't know what is going on in the person's life, right? So as astrologers look into the whole chart to give certain remediations or recommendations and consult people, same with people who work with crystal healing. So they need to know some more details about the person and what they're looking for. Selecting crystals by sign of zodiacs is more of a notion created for shops because it's just easier to sell crystals this way. But in reality, it's probably not the best thing to go. For example, I am an Aquarius, and amethyst usually is recommended as the first crystal for Aquarius, and I've never actually been attracted to that crystal until I was looking for specific qualities of that crystal, right? So that's why it's quite common. I even hear from people, oh, that's strange that, for example, this crystal is recommended for this sign, but I do not really relate to that. So be open-minded, listen to the descriptions, and pick the crystal which you connect to just by description, by its qualities maybe, and how it looks also sometimes can help you.
So my question then would be, so are you actually saying that when you do your consultations, you cast the astrology chart first, and then you feel which crystals you could recommend for that specific person?
Yeah, it can be different. Ideally, I prefer to see at least a date of birth so that I can work with numerology chart. I mean, interestingly, I started with selecting crystals for numerology, but now I use also astrology since I've learned that. And what is important is that to know what the person needs, what they are looking for, right? Because, for example, for Aries, I can choose 10 different crystals and they all will be good in some way, right? And some of them would also be good for some other sign. So it's just my recommendation for people to kind of understand what you're looking for, right?
So if we asked you to suggest some crystals that for each of the 12 signs, could we just run through that list and then we can talk about it a bit more at the end?
Yes, for sure. I prepared 12 crystals, and I'll explain why I recommend right now. Maybe in a year we'll recommend different crystals.
Okay, so we would naturally start with the sign of Aries. So Tatiana, what can you recommend for someone who's an Aries?
So for Aries, I decided to go with carnelian, which is actually technically not a typical crystal for Aries. I'm just warning you, but I'll explain why I recommend it. I'll just show like it can be different, can be bended, and just this orange crystal. So I think that Aries often, they do have energy. Sometimes this energy gets a little bit stagnated in a way in terms of they want to act, but maybe they something is in the way and they can be impatient, or there is a competition and things like that. So Aries is a very active sign. It doesn't think, like in a pure form, of course, because people might have moon in a different sign and ascendant, right? So basically, for Aries, this stone can give a sense of their body, so they can connect to their body, but also with a little bit of a spiritual side in terms of understanding why they want to do what, and putting their energy kind of with a little bit of a conscious feel, so to speak. And also it gives energy and vitality, so it can be nice to support that good it's a feel-good stone, so it's actually
excellent.
it's good for everyone in a way. So
Okay, so then what would you recommend for a Taurian person?
so for Taurian person, I decided to go with rhodonite, and rhodonite comes in different colors. So it can be pink like that, you see, it's a very tender very very lovely color. And then it can be darker with black inclusions as well. So depending, you can choose depending what you're more attracted to. And this is a good stone because it's, again, for Taurus, being sensual is really important. And this stone also would give them some energy, but also a feeling of coziness, so that they feel protected in a way, not necessarily from some evil influences, but just in general feeling good in their body and at home as well. It's a good stone for family as well. So because often Tauruses are in a relationship, and yeah, and the black inclusions actually help with being more responsible, so that you don't get too much into being lazy, but you also kind of remember about some duties too. So
Oh, interesting. That's a good one. So would you, just on a side note then, do inclusions come in all crystals or only on some crystals?
actually it varies. So depending on the crystals, there are so many shapes and forms. That's why actually sometimes, yeah, like in terms of making jewelry, even, like I cannot always reproduce the same exactly pattern, right? So because like rhodochrosite, for example, it comes in such interesting combinations of those patterns. And so yeah, so people have to keep in mind when they are looking for stone maybe that this what occurs. Like carnelian you probably would find in a similar shape, but I don't think you can find probably many of that specific hearts like this, exactly like that, right? So
what crystals would you recommend for a Gemini person?
so for Gemini people, I would recommend aquamarine today. So aquamarine is a really beautiful stone. I don't know if you can see it. It's very pale. It comes in two colors, a light blue and a light green, and could be blue-green as well. So why this stone is that because Gemini is like a master of communication, right? And they are very connected to different people, different ideas. There's a little bit more of a mental energy present there. And I think there might be a tendency to, unless you have a lot of earth, for example, in your chart, is that to go into some kind of chatting, discussing, and like it can be too much at some point, too much information, because their quest for information is always present, right? When Gemini has energy is very present, right? So this crystal will help them to kind of quiet the mind, not necessarily completely, right? But just like cleanse it. It's like as if you take a glass of water and then, there are some kind of particles in it, and then they go down, and then the water becomes more pure, right? Metaphorically speaking. And so that's what happens with aquamarine as well, is that it helps the mind to see more clearly, and also it's an intuitive stone. And again, there are so many qualities of each stone. I'm just naming very briefly one specific benefit.
Okay, super. So what about our Cancer friends? What crystals would you recommend for Cancer people?
So like many crystals could be recommended for Cancer people, right? And today probably I'll go with the classic one, is the moonstone. So moonstone also connects to intuition and to the sense of self-awareness, self-esteem as well in this quiet, wise way. And also it might help them to not to be oversensitive, right? Because Cancer people might be taking things to heart quite a lot, right? So, and this stone will just help them to kind of filter some influences, right, from outside. So, and I would recommend actually to go from not necessarily only white moonstone, which often is recommended, but especially peach and even 3-color, because this, like, you know, if you buy in strands and beads, for example, they come sometimes in white, peach and gray, so that would be a beautiful choice.
Sounds nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All righty, so let's move on. So which crystal would you recommend for Leos?
Yeah, Leo is it's I love all signs, but Leo is one of my favorite signs. So, and so a Leo person is someone who usually is creative and has a lot of potential, and they're vibrant. So Leo people can teach other people how to connect to their inner child, right? So for Leos, I would recommend amber, because amber is a really wonderful stone for connecting to your inner child, for hearing your inner truth as well. So that you appreciate yourself, and also you praise yourself a bit more than usual, right? Because many people go into self-doubts and self-criticism, and for Leos also it can happen at times. So this is a very, very bright and light stone. So it's light in weight and also in the feel. Technically, amber is not a crystal. It's a fossilized resin. Sorry, guys, I have sometimes trouble naming things in English. So amber is a fossilized resin from prehistoric trees.
Yes.
And it's good for kids as well. Interestingly, just like the nice fact about amber is that in Baltic countries and in Russia, it was used at times for kids when they would start teething, like people would give them amber. Yeah, so anyways, I'm not encouraging you to repeat everything. Just research before you do some remedies, but what I'm saying is that it's very safe for kids too. So it's a nice present for a child who is Leo too.
Oh, interesting, very nice.
Yeah.
No, these ambers, this is actually Baltic ambers as well. So.
Yes, actually, I just noticed that you have this. The only thing, like, amber got for years so expensive. So in Russia, when we grew up, it was everywhere. Like, we wouldn't even, I mean, look at that, because everyone had a ton of necklaces from amber. Yes. I don't know how exactly it was treated, so whether it was proper for healing or not, but we were not basically using it for healing. What I'm saying is that now it became much more expensive. I don't remember how much that could cost, but it can cost even like from $5 to $15, something like that, right? It's a bit more expensive than some other crystals, which you can get sometimes for a few cents, so from $1 to $5. So
okay,
yeah.
Okay, so let's move on then to Virgo. Which crystals would you recommend for Virgo people?
Yeah, for Virgo, I decided to go with moss agate. So these are 2 examples of moss agate. This is a palm stone. Very and nice. That's it's a little bit hard to see probably here, but technically moss agate, if you look at it to the light, it's half translucent, right? Yes. Semi-translucent. So, and there are interesting patterns with this forest theme. And moss agate I recommend because Virgos are prone to overthinking things and also to exhausting themselves through some either thinking or some kind of worries, or maybe attention to detail, and also working for other people. So especially if you're involved in social professions, I would say that this stone helps to restore yourself, or if you're after some illness or something, I would highly recommend moss agate to restore your energy and kind of rejuvenate yourself.
So let's move on a bit now, because we're kind of halfway through the zodiac. So what crystals would you recommend for Librans?
So for Libras, I would recommend chrysoprase. And first of all, it's a gorgeous stone with a very unique color. Yeah. So chrysoprase can help Librans to balance yin yang energy, right? If Librans are prone to some kind of thoughts which might get to a spleen or some, I'm not saying depressive moods, but some kind of less positive moods. So I would say this can help to cheer up and also to be creative and to express their talents, because Librans have a lot of talents as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. That seems a very interesting stone in itself. Yeah, it's not a very
there's so many properties of each stone. I don't go here a lot into physical benefits, like in terms of to treat something, because I just decided to focus on emotional and
absolutely, yeah. Okay, so what crystals would you recommend then for Scorpio people?
For Scorpio people, I would recommend today Chariot. Here, I don't know if you can see that the color, because this looks blue on my screen, but it's actually very, very vibrant, kind of like dark lilac color. Chariot is a crystal which is only found in Russia, actually, which I'm proud of. So it's more of an enigmatic stone. So it's for developing psychic abilities, yes, for connecting to your life in a kind of like magical way. I'm not saying like necessarily doing magic, right?
Yeah.
Although it can be a crystal for that too, but also to create a life of your dreams in a way. And because Scorpios usually dive deep, this can help them to do it in a more like ecological way, so to speak.
Okay.
Right? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very interesting looking.
And feel other people as well, yeah, because they often can give some insights to other people too.
Okay. So what do you have in lined up for Sagittarians?
Yeah, for Sagittarians, today I wanted to choose lapis lazuli.
Beautiful, yeah.
So, yeah, lapis lazuli is a gorgeous stone. Like if someone is into chakras and energies, this is more over 6 chakra stone, although some people use it for 5th as well, but I would say it's more of a 6 center and energetic center. And this can help to preserve that vitality which Sagittarius have, and also often they have a lot of talents and might be a little bit spread between different talents, right? And this can help them to focus on their inner truth, right? And to kind of relate to some wise part of them, because this is also an intuitive stone, right? And also to keep and share and preserve their optimistic outlook and this ability to pass the knowledge to others and to connect to people. Yeah, sometimes lapis lazuli comes with pirate incursions as well. So in this case, it doesn't have a lot, but sometimes it has also pirate, and pirate would help to achieve something. So
okay, interesting one there for Sagittarius. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just say quickly again, it's my interpretation, disclaimer taken, so there are different descriptions of stones. That's how I understand them, and I suggest, guys, you just connect to them in your own way.
Well, this is why we're asking you, Tatiana, because we want to know how do you approach correlating crystals with astrology? Because I mean, there are different ways. There are lists of birthstones and all of this, but really each crystal worker seems to do it differently. That's why it was interesting to hear your views. Yes. Thank you for your curiosity. I'm so excited to see people who are into crystals as me. So you know what, I think it really varies from a person to person, and even in my case, like my understanding and connection, I would say, like how I sense crystals, how I connect to them, it was changing for time, and it's not a constant thing. To some crystals I keep being drawn all the time, to some not, and then I discover them. It's quite common to have also, as we call, crystal crush. So so I wonder, what's your crystal crush, Alison, today? So I would say that I don't necessarily believe everything what is written in the books or in the articles. Like I like trying things
myself and kind of discovering through life and through my practice what is it for. But I did notice that certain crystals, for example, give energy more than others, or with others I feel more like aligned, balanced, you know. And it can be different for a person, a different person. Also, there's such a thing as synergy, that crystals, they either kind of lose a little bit their qualities, or they get enhanced if they're combined with others. So like in my case, because I usually combine crystals in jewelry, right? So that's part of the process to figure out what goes with what, right, for a specific request.
Interesting insight into your process there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on then to Capricorn. Can you share with us what crystals you're recommending for Capricorn today?
Yeah, for Capricorn, I decided to go with fluorite. So, and especially, it's called rainbow fluorite or green purple fluorite.
Oh.
So fluorite exists in different colors, and if you connect to some other fluorite, you're welcome to use that too. So why I'm choosing for Capricorns this stone? Because Capricorns, they tend to have to-do lists, you know, to try to structure and to organize their life, and they're good at that often. So I would say that fluorite will help them to also use some kind of inspiration, right? So that they do things also out of their needs and not only wants, so to speak, right? So that they, not necessarily in the negative meaning that you want a thing or to achieve, but what I'm saying is that sometimes people are riding on a certain road, but they kind of forget why they're doing that, right? So why am I doing this particular task or want to achieve that goal? And that, I think, can help them to listen to their own reaction and inspiration, and to feel creative in that process too. So
yeah,
because fluorite purple is your mind, and green is your heart, so it kind of connects in the two color stone, mind to the heart as well.
very nice analogy then. So then we get around to your sun sign. So
Yes.
what stone do you recommend for Aquarians? And I assume it's not going to be amethyst then, is that right?
Yes. Well, the thing is that why I decided not to include rose quartz, amethyst, citrine, and the clear quartz is actually because they are kind of like feel-good stones, and they are good for everyone. So yes, I decided to choose a different stone, and it's fuchsite. Maybe an unusual choice for many people. So basically, first of all, I just really love that crystal. My chart is complex, so there's not a lot of air actually there, so Aquarius doesn't play the leader role there. I think it can help Aquarius to focus on their body a little bit more than only be in the mind. And
Right.
so Aquarius can be also prone, as Virgo, to thinking a lot, to having a ton of ideas, and yeah, like kind of flying away in their mind very far from their body. So, and this stone will help to calm down the mind. And also I think it's quite positive and very light in the feel. If someone doesn't have a strong sensitivity to crystals yet, I would suggest to start with fuchsite as one of the options, because it feels interesting in the hand. And so it kind of makes you come back to your feelings rather than just the mental things going on.
That's a very unusual stone that would probably go very well with Aquarius.
Yeah. I don't know. I just went with intuition for this series. So it's just a chance for people to connect to something new, maybe, if they didn't expect that. So
sounds great. And then finally, what stones are you recommending at this time for Pisces?
So for Pisces, I was a little bit biased, as with a few other zodiac signs, and I decided to go for selenite. Technically, there is a discussion whether it's called selenite or ulexite, because some people say that what usually is sold as selenite is actually ulexite. And in a way, I think it's true, but because selenite usually is not as soft as ulexite, so this one cannot be put into water because it will dissolve in water. So I'm choosing these crystals for Pisces because it can cleanse their aura. So you can even use selenite wands to cleanse your aura. And also it's a soothing stone, and it's intuitive. It can connect to their higher energy.
Okay.
So these are the main reasons probably why I choose, and it kind of can get them out of some moody conditions if that is present too. So
Interesting. Also a different type of stone, which I'm glad that you brought some different stones too.
Yeah. Well, that's why I chose. I thought for a change.
Yeah. Well, this is great as a roundup on the actual crystals that you're recommending for the 12 zodiac signs. I'd just like to now ask you perhaps that if someone wanted to now start a crystal collection, where do you suggest they make their purchases? What would you recommend is the best way for a beginner to start collecting crystals?
Yes, I think that the best way to start is probably to go to a gem show. So, for example, in Vancouver, we have Vancouver Gem Show, and I had a chance to work there for the organizer of the show a few times, and also got exposed to different crystal sellers. And yeah, it's very fascinating. The only thing what I suggest is that to set a budget. Same with going to crystal shops. So crystal shops can be very enticing, and gem shows as well. So you might be torn between many different crystals. Some of them might be expensive, and also, as we know, it piles up. You know, you spend $1 here, $5 here, and then you end up spending $300. So that happens a lot with crystal lovers, as they say. So set a budget, take cash.
Yes.
And then open your heart and connect to what you like. Another tip might be is just to take pictures of crystals which you like, and then decide what to buy. Okay, so it's just a precaution I tell people, because it's you cannot imagine, this world is really very magical in a way. So now some people also start collecting from being gifted a certain crystal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and or maybe seeing a collection at some other person's place. And again, there are those who are into crystal healing usually, and then there are people who are into minerals and rocks. So, and you kind of probably need to decide who you are.
Who you are, yes, good point.
Because it's easy to kind of be both, but at the same time, I would say the selecting of crystals is slightly different. For example, for collection, some people try to buy bigger crystals, but actually even like a tiny crystal like that, like you see this turquoise, like one of my most favorite crystals, and it's like so powerful, even being so tiny, right? So listen to your intuition, to your heart, and try to see what you actually are attracted to and why. So
thanks. Yes, no, these are some really great tips you've given us here, Tatiana. Thank you. Yes.
Also, sometimes people buy second-hand crystals, and in this case, I would recommend to really make sure to cleanse them, as in any case, whether you buying it at the gem show or crystal shops, it's really important to cleanse crystals, and even if it's gifted too, because that's what makes them such nicer friends, I would say.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Tatiana, for coming and sharing your information with us. And I will put a link to your YouTube channel below, and we look forward to speaking with you again sometime again in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
So there it is. That's quite a roundup that Tatiana has given us about how she came into crystals and the suggestions that she has for crystals for each of the astrological signs. As you can see, that the crystals that she has selected are they're the ones that she feels more closely relate to the actual meaning of the astrology signs. Because she is an astrologer, she's able to put her own opinion on it, of course. And to be honest, as astrologers, we all have our own opinions about which crystal perhaps will work well with which signs. I too have a list of crystals that I believe go well with the signs, and maybe I'll be discussing that at another point. But the idea is that when you start working with crystals, that you choose crystals that resonate with you, that you are attracted to, so that you can engage almost with them as well. Tatiana was also wanting to reinforce the fact that all crystals need to be cleansed once you receive them. Crystal cleansing can be done in many ways, by the sun, by the moon, in water, being buried, or anything like that. And we will probably discuss that at another time as well. But she did want me to reinstate that cleansing of crystals is critically important before you start using them. Here we are. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give me a like, make a comment and share the video with someone who might be interested. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Alison Price. I'll see you next time.